Good day. We're going to carry on with coaching, and today we're going to look at why is coaching different. So coaching is different from counseling and consulting and mentoring. So we're first going to start with the counseling part. So counseling, we will basically look at problems that people have got. So that is normally things like depression, anxiety, anger, conflict. So something in their life went wrong and they need to get that fixed. So people then end up going to a counselor and having counseling sessions. Now these topics have been studied for years and a lot of research has been done. Also in a pastoral environment, a lot of focus have gone into counseling, as well as a lot of books have been written and a lot of articles. The goal with counseling is to move from your negative experience and difficulties to be able to function and to better able cope with your life going forward. So it is to live a life that's more positive. So counseling actually focuses on the past and what has happened in the past. So it deals with the issues in your life, and it helps people solve problems to become more stable, to spend time in the future, focusing then on the future. Coaching, the difference with coaching is coaching focuses on the positive. So it wants to move people to a higher level of fulfillment. A Christian coach will look at not changing people, but merely to try to motivate them to actually move into a direction where they can live to their full potential. Then if we look at consulting, so how does consulting differ from coaching? Consulting, we will assess a situation and then we will provide expert advice. So consulting happens like business consulting or even consulting within a church environment. So normally there is a problem or a project that needs to be analyzed, and then there will be a plan of action and expert advice being given. So say for instance, as an individual, you are seriously ill, you will go to a doctor, so you will consult with the doctor to get the right treatment. As a business, if your business is not growing, you need more marketing, you will actually get a business consultant in that will analyze it and look at the problems and then devise a plan. So on consulting, one analyzes and makes recommendations. Now coaching differs that it focuses on the individual or the group, and it will stimulate it to get to its own judgments and own decisions, and does not diagnose or analyze the problem or give advice. So there's a complete difference between consulting and coaching. It also means that the coach does not need, like the consultant, to actually be an expert in that industry. So what does the coach do? The coach will listen. It will seek to understand what is being said. It will ask questions to get a further understanding, and then the coach will guide the conversation to keep the client focused on the issue, so that the client can actually get to a problem solution, that they can be motivated by the coach and then move forward. So if we then look at mentoring, so what is the difference between mentoring and coaching? So mentoring is normally a more senior person that will mentor a junior person. So the more senior person has got a lot of experience, and they're tapping into their own experience to give advice to the junior and mentor the junior. So it's more teaching that actually happens by the mentor. And the mentor, as I said, will draw from their own knowledge. So if we then look at coaching, coaching actually draws from the abilities that God has put into someone. So when you are coaching someone, you are looking at the abilities that God put into that person to coach them to get to those abilities. So Tony Stoltzfus, which is a leadership coach, said the following: when I'm mentoring, I'm teaching a person, letting him draw from me or learn from my experience. When I'm coaching, I'm pushing the person to draw from his own resources and experiences. So that is where the big difference lies. So each of these approaches has its place in leadership development. So we're not saying counseling is not working, consulting is not working, mentoring is not working. Each has got its place in leadership development. But coaching is the most effective approach to equip leaders to fulfill their God-given potential. Coaching encourages emerging leaders to draw direction from the biblical desires and gifting that God has placed within them, rather than depending on someone else's direction or someone else's experiences. If we now look in your workbooks on page 12, there's a very nice table with a comparison, and I want us to work through that. If we now look at life coaching, the relationship is either one-on-one or a group, and it's in a professional context. The focus with life coaching is on the future and the future vision. The desired outcome here is action towards a meaningful goal. And the role that the coach plays is to collaborate, structuring the client's agenda so that the client can get to the problem solving, and then the client to motivate and implement. Counseling, if we look at counseling, the typical relationship there is one-on-one or a group. The counsel focuses on past experiences or past pain. The desired outcome here is healing or restoration. And the role of the counselor is a clinical expertise facilitating the healing process. On consulting, the relationship here is either also one-on-one or an organization. The focus with consulting is there's a problem or a project. The desired outcome is expert opinion. So the consultant here needs to be an expert on the project or the problem. The role here is to analyze and make recommendations. Then if we look at spiritual direction, the typical relationship here is either one-on-one or in a group, and it happens in a ministry. The focus here is on God, and the desired outcome is God's direction. The role that the person plays in spiritual direction is a collaborator who will pray and listen. And then lastly, we're looking at mentoring or discipleship. The relationship here is either one-on-one, and it's in a business, ministry, or personal relationship. The focus here is on teaching by example. The desired outcome is either a spiritual or personal growth, and here the person that is mentoring or discipling someone, their role is companion who leads and advises by example. So if we now move over to the coaching relationship with the client, how does this relationship between the coach and the coachee or the client actually look? Now, this relationship is a life-changing relationship. And I think many of you can think back about people that's been very influential in your life. It might have been a teacher that has really saw your potential and developed you and pushed you to actually go into a certain direction. It might have been in a business environment that it was a business leader that took you under their wing and really developed you. Or it might have been in a spiritual relationship where someone has really taken you in spiritually and helped to develop you. So those relationships are life-changing relationships, and a coaching relationship is also like that. Coaches regularly have the opportunity to develop this kind of extraordinary relationship by investing into another person. A coach does not just relate to people. They relate in a way that they energize and challenges every aspect of that person every time that they meet. So learning to constantly relate to people in this way is the first step in becoming a coach. Then you need to have an authentic relationship as a coach. Now, what does it mean to have an authentic relationship? That means the inside and the outside that you portray are exactly the same. So you can't have a public face and a private face. Okay, there's one face, and the inside and the outside is exactly the same. So people fear to be judged or rejected, and they will hide if they seems that people are not authentic in their relationships. We all are ashamed about things that has happened in the past. And it's difficult sometimes to confront these things that has happened. With an authentic relationship, you are creating an environment that is safe for people in a coaching environment to actually share these shameful things that has happened, so that you can have an authentic relationship with them and to actually identify all the problems that's there and help them to work through it. If this does not happen, the coaching relationship stays very much on the surface and you don't get to really get to the real problems and the person to really address those problems. So authenticity comes only from two things, and that is discipline and risk. So the coach must discipline himself to take relational risks. That relational risk is to be the one to first take the step in being authentic in the relationship. So normally what will happen with your first session with your client, many coaches spend about 15 to 20 minutes actually telling their story and focusing in their story on their own failures, their own disappointments and struggles. This sets the platform for the client to then, in an authentic relationship, share also what has happened to them. So that is the discipline to share it and the risk that you're taking. Secondly, it needs to be an unconditional relationship. So that means that you need to accept and believe your client without any performance from them. So where the client, you held the client responsible or accountable to do something and they're not doing it, in love, you've got to accept it, still believe in them and still carry on with the relationship. So this is a biblical concept of agape love. And as it says in Luke 6 verse 35 to 37, but love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return, and you will be sons of the Most High, for He is kind to the ungrateful and the selfish. Be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. So this is an unconditional love that has great power to transform people's life. Simply listening without judgment is a compelling demonstration of love. So when you're interacting with your client and you keep your client accountable for something that they had to do in the past week, they come back and they say to you, sorry, but they did not have time to do it. It's that unconditional love to listen and say, but what prevented you from doing it? And listening and not being judgmental. Coaching relationships utilizes boundaries to enable the coach to unconditionally believe in and support their client. One boundary that the coaching relationship focuses on is not the issues of the coach, but of the client. And that is so important when you go into a coaching session, that you leave your troubles outside the coaching session, that you focus on your client and not on your own problems. Once again, this approach is another practical way to express your agape love, the love that gives, expecting nothing in return. Done correctly, the coaching relationship provides clients with a powerful example of God's love for them. Then the last area that we're going to have a look at in this relationship is the authority and responsibility. And the authority and the responsibility lies with the client, not with the coach. So in a coaching relationship, the focus is entirely on the client. They have the power. Coaches don't have the authority like a client's boss or mentor or counselor or pastor. You don't have that authority. The authority rests with the client. So the coach doesn't tell the client what to do or expect them to live up to their own standards, which is the standards of the coach. The coach respects and honors the client. In God's world, authority and responsibility go together. This is one of the key characteristics of effective leadership and of a healthy organization. The person who is responsible in a specific area has got the authority to make the decisions. And those authoritative decisions, the responsibility for them and the consequences of those decisions lies with that person. So in a coaching relationship, the client retains the authority to make choices about their life and bears the responsibility of those choices. Coaches must learn this principle. You are not responsible for your client's outcome. And this is so difficult as a coach, especially where you can see your client is making the wrong choices. You can't interfere. You can't stop your client making those wrong choices. Only where those wrong choices will lead them into sin or be harmful to them can you intervene. But in all the other circumstances, you've got to leave the client to make those wrong choices. It's the client's responsibility. Okay. Then you might say, but why are we allowing people to make wrong choices? Well, isn't that exactly what God is doing with our lives? Only He knows the many wrong things He sees in each of us. Yet, He often allows us to go ahead with our own plans, some of which produce disastrous results. But here is a key insight. Often those same disasters becomes life-changing experiences. So the coaching methodology recognizes that there will be failures, but these failures are powerful learning tools. So the coach must support and encourage, but doesn't always prevent the client of making those bad decisions. So a coach is not responsible to address every problem that the coach sees in a client's life. At a given moment, God sees many wrong things in each of us, but He doesn't address all of them. He takes it one step at a time. And we need to follow God's agenda. So God will show to you which are the problems that you need to focus on with the client now. Listen, ask questions about it, and get the client to solutions for those problems, and then encourage and motivate the client to actually go and implement those solutions. So after the session, I want you to come together in groups, preferably 3-4 in a group, and I want you in the groups to discuss the following. The first one is describe the difference between coaching and 2 other methods of helping people or developing leaders. Now the methods that we looked at, just to remind you, is counseling, consulting, and mentoring. So in your groups, choose 2 of them and then compare it to coaching and see what's the difference. Then secondly, the power of coaching comes from an emphasis of 3 things. The relationship, secondly, the client, and thirdly, influence. Now, how do these emphases differ from the traditional methods of leadership development? Also, in your groups, 3 or 4 together, please discuss this now. Thank you.